Hi, I'm Jessica Hunter, and this is my final video for climate change class, climate change in my backyard, and my topic is drought in South Dakota. South Dakota is no stranger to drought, but the patterns and such have changed in the last couple of years. And pre-2025, central upper South Dakota would have the most amount of drought, and lower, especially the southwest, but all along the south would be kind of normal rainfall for moisture precipitation year round. It's changed. It's changed in the last 8 months. And recently, I read a recent article from Ag Week. They highlighted a guy named Brian Jorgensen from Ideal, South Dakota. He's a farmer who's been in business for about 40 years. And he says this has been the worst season of his career. He's probably going to have to abandon half of his winter wheat that he planted in September from last year because of the strange drought that we are in. And they reported 68% of South Dakota winter wheat crop is in drought conditions right now, ranging from abnormally dry to extreme drought, according to drought.com's 5 intensities. And even the snow that they received where he's at was considered dry snow. And they had one rain in September. And so they were planting along, like the first plantings they did, because it got that first rain, they survived through the winter. They actually grew, but the plantings they did after some of them didn't even grow. So it's pretty drastic. The premise for my video is that there are a combination of climate factors that led to this situation that this farmer is dealing with. The first one is the history of drought in South Dakota, which is important to recognize because of the amount of moisture that's already or is not present in the soils already. So this farmer, in looking forward to the rest of this year, considering what crops he's going to plant for the rest of the year, knows he needs to have up to about 5 feet deep worth of moisture. And after you get past the first few inches of moisture, it's dry all the way down. And so that's really bodes badly for not just for the crop that they tried to grow over winter, but what they're doing over the summer. And the greenhouse effect, for our second factor, the greenhouse effect has really caused it to become more severe. Last year we experienced an extra strong La Nina, which is one of the oscillations that causes fluctuations in other oscillations as well as in the weather climate factors. So the first map, I have some maps to show, and the first one is in regard to that. It's called from drought.gov, and it's called the U.S. Drought Monitor. This map is actually from last fall when the article was done in Ag, same time frame, right? But I'm going to point to where South Dakota is straight down, and you can see that there is almost no drought in South Dakota because we had a really wet summer. Oh, see if I can get this up here right. You can see where South Dakota's at, and it's mostly just yellow, and there's that five-fold scale that they have, and on there yellow means abnormally dry, but not drought. And that was the worst part, the worst of it. And like I said, that's not even a normal, but there's that. And then we move on to the next, and here is South Dakota, and you can see the yellow again. But now South Dakota doesn't just have a little yellow on the bottom. Now it's red and orange and brown and then the yellow. Whereas the last map, 8 months ago, the map was just a little bit of brown, a little bit of yellow right along the bottom. So the drought has definitely become more severe. It ranges from abnormally dry to moderate drought, severe drought, extreme drought, exceptional drought. And so in South Dakota, we have some places where we have extreme drought now. So the third factor that I wanted to bring about and talk about is the North Atlantic Oscillation. Again, another one of the oscillations affected by the La Nina, which tends to affect other things, especially when it gets extreme, and in turn affect the local weather that we had here as the air is moving across. So our fourth factor, of course, is the local weather, and we had persistent high pressure weather systems that blocked moisture from coming into South Dakota. So higher temperatures and well, I can actually show you that. On the South Dakota map, they showed, you can kind of see how they're all connected, because on the same place in drought.gov, they show a map of the precipitation conditions and the temperature conditions. Temperatures were in the max for the last since January. So it goes from 0 to 60 degrees and being the highest, and all of South Dakota is white, meaning that it's in the highest degrees. We've had 9 days of record temperatures, record highs since January in South Dakota. And another one that I can show you, if it will, let me do something. Well, anyway, it was just going to show about the moisture levels that are in the soil, but it didn't come up. So as you can see, the effects of the weather, how the different oscillations affect each other and how they affect the weather, and then how those things are going to affect the world we live in, right? Because that's kind of what it's about and what our experience is, and can we live here? And not that I'm, anti-planet and it's all about humans, certainly not. But we have to take care of the planet if we're going to take care of ourselves. But so the planet is really important, really. Even for its own sake, yes, but for the sake of this. The first thing I wanted to highlight was the effects it has on the Missouri River Basin and the impact there on communities, ecosystems, the water resources, and agriculture. And of course, it's devastating for farming because plants are so fragile, that's a good word. Okay, so from weather.gov and that one, we got the 9 days of record high temperatures since January. January through March was the second driest quarter since the 1800s. So it's been extremely dry here. And these droughts are very expensive. It's not even about just, it's too dry to grow crops or food or with animals. But 2017, the drought caused communities in the Missouri River Basin $2.6 billion just in agriculture loss. And 2021, again, multi-billion-dollar losses in agriculture because of drought in the Missouri River Basin. So it's a very fragile ecosystem, and everything depends on the other. And these things all, in turn, they affect us. They affect the farmer who's trying to grow our food, but all the way down the chain. So, in conclusion, I just want to say climate change is real and it happens every day. Human beings are adding to the heating and drying effects by rapidly adding greenhouse gases that exacerbate the effects of climate factors. They layer together and work together to create our experience of what we have in our climate, our weather, and our environment, but it determines whether we can actually live here or not. And it's a delicate system of checks and balances that has functioned for thousands of years, but it's now been thrown off balance. And yet it will find its new normal, because that is how this works as a system. It will keep making big storms and big fluctuations until it finds its new normal. The question is, can we ride the storm? How and what we're going to do to be able to mitigate for ourselves, as well as trying to mitigate the effects of climate change. So that is climate in our backyard as South Dakotans are facing drought to the point of not being able to grow food. Kind of a sobering thing. And that's my final. I'm Jessica Hunter. That's my final for climate change. Thank you.